Hello everyone, and welcome back to Flo's Corner. So in this video, I am going to answer this question, which was, what is the hardest part about being a phlebotomist? Honestly, this question was asked, I think, a few times when I was asking you guys to write any questions you wanted me to answer in a Q&A video, and I just never got around to this one question. So I decided to make an actual full long video on what is the hardest part about being a phlebotomist. So please stay tuned. So some of these you might have heard before in other and some of my other videos, like my pros and cons videos, and some of these things that I'm going to discuss in this video is actually things that I have brought up in many of my other videos. But you know, hey, I love making these videos because it's fun, you know. So I'm going to describe pretty much, again, some of them you may notice, but I'm just going to go in detail in my own little way, and I hope you guys stay to watch the video. So let's get right into it. Okay, so number one, about what is the hardest part about being a phlebotomist, which is kind of funny because this is technically not, because you're not yet a phlebotomist, but one is going to be getting a job. Obviously, this will always be number one when it comes to the hardest part about let's just say the hardest part about phlebotomy for this question. So the hardest part about phlebotomy, definitely number one, is going to be getting a job. We all know it's so hard to get a job when it comes to trying to become a phlebotomist. You spend this money on your courses, you spend this money on your certifications, and then you can't even get a daggone job. It's literally getting more and more prominent, of getting harder. Like, it was hard when I was going through employment and things like that, trying to get a job myself, but it's like the messages that you guys are sending me, it seems to me like it's getting more and more harder and harder, and I just don't understand why is it like that. Like, obviously I feel like it's like that getting in the medical field anyway, to be anything else in the medical field, but I feel like this phlebotomy thing needs to stop when it comes to getting a job. Like, honestly, the easiest way before was like going to plasma centers and blood donation centers, and I just feel so disheartened to get these messages from you guys saying that you're applying, and it's so hard to get in. Oh my gosh, I am so sorry. Like I said, I really wish that like my channel could like go further, like to Congress or the Senate or wherever, and just be like, hey, I need to advocate for my future phlebotomists who can't even get a job. Like, honestly, I would literally sit there and take the vow and be like, hey, have internship programs or externships, all kinds of programs for future phlebotomists so that they can actually get a job after getting their certification and things. Like, come on. I want to apologize. I know it's like, I know that I'm not the reason of why the jobs and everything, but it just, I feel like it's so like kind of sort of my fault, or I don't know. I know it's not my fault, but I'm just saying, I just feel like I can't do anything, you know, because I'm making these videos about phlebotomy, about the certification and process and what we do and things like that. And then I have future aspiring phlebotomists at least trying to get their foot in the door. And I'm so sorry that you guys are having this hard time, but it's definitely one of the biggest things about what is the hardest part. One of the hardest things about phlebotomy, not being a phlebotomist, is getting a job. But as usual, you guys know, I always try to encourage you to continue to apply. Do not stop. Do not give up. Continue to apply. Even if you work as something else, do not throw away your certification, your training course, or anything like that. Just keep applying. Whatever jobs, write entry-level phlebotomist jobs in your Google search engine or Indeed or something, and keep applying. Like, if they're not hitting you back up, call them up. Hey, I would like to know the status of my application. Like, come on, you know what I'm saying? Don't stop. I just always want to encourage you guys never to stop, never to give up on that dream of phlebotomy, because like I said, no one just takes courses without the intentions of like, hey, you know, I want to be something because I'm taking this course, right? You know, you're not going to pay for your certification and all the things that you went through just to throw it away. So I always encourage y'all, always is to keep applying. keep putting your name out there. If you have friends or anything like that in the medical field, try and see if anybody can, you know, find a door or something like that, but never give up, y'all. Never give up. Okay, so question 1 was technically what was the hardest part about phlebotomy, and now we're going to go back into what is the hardest part about being a phlebotomist. So number 2 on my list is going to be dealing with the fears and anxieties of patients. So pretty much I explained these in a couple of my other videos. You're going to deal with patients and have patients that have needle anxiety, like blood seeing anxiety, like, you know, patients that may faint on you, patients who have a lot of fears and all kinds of things. So that is definitely one part of our job that we definitely have to know, that once we are in this career field, that is going to happen. You're going to have people who are scared of needles. You're going to have people who are scared of the sight of blood, and it may become a whole difficult session when they're coming in to take their blood. They're very afraid, they're scared. Like I said, it doesn't always happen with just children. You do have adults and geriatric patients that may be fearful of needles. And you as a phlebotomist, there's going to be a lot of de-escalating a lot of situations, because we are the one that has to be the one to stick them, but you can't stick, you know, you cannot sit there and try to stick a very fearful patient. You know, you're going to risk sticking them in the wrong place, you know, things like this. You guys already know what I explained these in a lot of my other videos. You have to calm the situation down. You can't just stick a very fearful patient. They may move, they may jolt. You can stick them in the nerve, give them nerve damage, all kinds of things, and you don't want to deal with that. But that is one thing that I would consider one of the hardest part about being a phlebotomist, is by dealing with patients' fears and anxieties. And you will go through this in your whole entire career of phlebotomy. Honestly, I want to say that yes, every day may be a great day. You have like every wonderful patient who just knows to come in and just stick their arm out like, I'm ready. Yeah, it sounds all fine and dandy in our perfect little phlebotomy world, but it's not like that at all. So hospital, clinic, blood donation centers, wherever you go, you're going to deal with people who have that has fears and anxiety. So just gather yourself and just know that you will be dealing with this in this field. So number 3 on my list is going to be difficult venipuncture. So what I mean by this is that you're going to be dealing with patients who are heart sticks. Now, heart sticks, you guys know in many of my other videos, are patients who doesn't have really good prominent veins, that is just nice and juicy and ready for you to go, and it's just going to give you a beautiful session and all of these things. You're going to deal with patients who have terrible veins. You're going to deal with patients where you may not even get them in the forearm. You're going to try and get them in the hand. That may not even work. And, you know, you got to send the patient somewhere else because you couldn't find anything. You're going to deal with these type of things when it comes to being a phlebotomist. Difficult venipuncture can go either way. You can have wonderful days of, like I said, everyone was a great stick, or even 80% of the patients were a great stick, and then you had 20% of the patients who were not a great stick. That can take an emotional toll on you, because you're like, oh man. Or I'm not even gonna lie, there are some days that I had patient after patient, everybody was a hard stick, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm telling you. So that is one thing that can definitely be a thing, and it's that difficult venipuncture. You're gonna have your patients that say, oh yeah, drink a lot of water and stuff, and you're looking at them dehydrated old veins, and you're like, why you didn't drink water? Like, you know, stop lying to me, you know. So you're gonna deal with a lot of that. You're gonna deal with if you're working in the hospital, you're gonna deal with sick patients. So some patients who have illnesses and things like that may be heart sticks, because obviously, you know, you're in the hospital for a reason, and you're going to be dealing with difficult venipunctures. And yes, I'm not going to sit here and say, because I've worked in the hospital, and yes, when I don't catch the right veins and stuff like that, I have to stick a patient more than once and stuff. You know, it takes a toll on you. And you know, after your shift, you feel defeated. You know, sometimes I felt defeated, like, what am I doing? This is not what I want to do. Like, oh my God, you know, I'm hurting people. I'm giving them bruises, hematomas, and blown veins, and you know, what am I doing in this career? You're gonna have these thoughts in your mind when you are a phlebotomist. I don't want to say that I don't think anyone has ever felt that way. I don't give a dang what career you're in. You know, there's some moments where you're just like, what am I doing? You know, this is not for me, and things like that. But that is another one that you're going to be dealing with, which is going to be difficult venipuncture, because like I said, we are all very unique in our own way, and there are many patients who doesn't have really great prominent veins. You're going to be dealing with pediatrics, geriatrics, and you know, everybody knows, you know, sometimes children and geriatrics can be quite hard when it comes to trying to get a great stick, and you know, it's just a lot. Sorry if you guys keep seeing me looking down. It's bumpy. She's literally like on my feet in a weird way. I don't know, it's kind of crazy. Anyways, let's move on. Number 4 on my list is going to be the physical demand. So this pretty much can go either way. Like I said, you can work in a clinic, you can work in a diagnostic laboratory, you can work in a hospital, and there are certain times when you're a phlebotomist that you're going to be on your feet. You're going to be on your feet. Obviously, being a phlebotomist and drawing blood is not really a sit-down job. If you catch my drift, it's not a sit-down job. So you're going to be on your feet. You're going to be moving. You're going to be going from here, going from there to, you know, to centrifuging your specimens, and you know, putting things in the refrigerator, stocking your area, your blood draw station, you know, all of these things. You're going to be moving. If you're working in the hospital, you guys know in my video I discussed that we literally just go from room to room, unit to unit, with the cart with all of our blood work items and things. And yeah, I worked a 10-hour shift every day, and that was brutal on my feet. I'm telling you, by the time it was at like the last hour or two of my shift, I was crying almost, because my feet hurt so much. You're moving, you're walking, everybody's not fit, you know what I mean? So you know, it's a physical demanding type of job. So you're going to be on your feet. You may be working long hours. I don't want you guys to just feel that even working in a clinic that you may only work short hours. You may work in a clinic that never closes. You may work at a diagnostic laboratory 8, 9, 10 hours. So it just honestly depends on where your location is setting. So the job of being a phlebotomist can be physically demanding for you if you're not used to it. If you're used to an office job, if you're used to sitting down and things like that, some days are not slow days. So even working at a clinic, I may have a lot of patients, and that means I'm not sitting down. I'm up, you know, I'm going from finishing this patient, labeling, doing all of that stuff, and then my next one is in, and then my next one is in, my next, and then it's just going. And the next thing you know, the only time you get to sit down is on your lunch break. So it just depends on where you're working and your location and how the patient population is, and things like that. But it tends to be a very physical demanding job, depending, like I said, on the setting and where you are and things like that. Number 5 on my list is going to be the risk of needle stick injury. So this is something that I have discussed in many of my other videos as well. And pretty much when you are a phlebotomist, you know, you're working with needles. There's no doubt. You know, blood is just not going to look into the patient's arm and just, you know, use my telekinesis to be like, give me the blood. You know, no, it's not going to work that way. So obviously you're going to be dealing with needles. These are sharp objects. Come on, you know, so the risk of needle stick injury is definitely high when you're working with needles, because anything can happen. You may have patients that move, you may have patients that twitch, you may move, or anything like that. Someone can kick you, someone can, you know, grab their phone at the last minute when you're getting ready to stick, or they're going like this, and then now the needle went in their arm another way or on you, and however. So the risk of needle stick injury is definitely high when you are a phlebotomist. And of course, it's scary. You're dealing with blood. How many bloodborne pathogens there are out there? Many. And you know, it's very scary for you. And honestly, you don't want to get sick unless you have to get sick, right? So why the heck would I feel like I want to risk that? But when you are a phlebotomist, you're taking that badge of honor, like you guys always know, that I'm going to stick. I'm going to be dealing with sharp objects. I am going to be knowing the risk of being stuck accidentally or sticking a patient accidentally in the wrong spot. These are the badge of honors that we take as a phlebotomist. But I always like to say, well, somebody has to do it, and that's us. That's the people who wants to come into phlebotomy. Hello, I'm here. You see me? So pretty much that is another hard thing about being a phlebotomist, is that the risk of needle stick injury is very high. But obviously you are a professional, you should be trained on what to do. This is why I always like to discuss, de-escalate your situation. Never stick a patient who's very fearful, very can't calm down, the anxiety, even children, even geriatrics and adults and everything, just trying to de-escalate before you stick, because you don't want to risk these things. You want your patients to be calm. You want to be calm. You don't want your anxiety over the roof or anything like that. So if you notice that maybe you're going through a bunch of hard sticks and you just need a minute, take a minute. You don't want to keep sticking because you may not be focused and things like that, and that can mess you up, and you can stick yourself, you can stick the patient, and however. But this is another hard thing about phlebotomy that we, like I said, go through. So next on my list is going to be dealing with strict policies and procedures that we have to go through, and protocols. So as a phlebotomist, there are lots of things that you are going to learn before you get on that floor, which on the hospital floor, working in a clinic, and however, you're going to go through your training, you're going to go through your orientation, you're going to go through all this stuff. And there are many policies, protocols, and all of this stuff that we have to deal with. Protocols like dealing with sharps and dealing with needles, dealing with specimens, blood collection, things like that. Bumpy, will you get this is on my feet? Dealing with all of these different things, there's a lot of rules. There's a lot of rules about transporting your specimens. There's a lot of rules about storage and centrifuging. There's a lot of strict policies and things that you have to go through when it comes to working as a phlebotomist. Now, every job has their own strict policies and protocols for their own personal employer, but it goes the same all the way around. Obviously, when you draw blood, you're going to have to put it in sharps. That goes anyway. I don't care if you're working in a hospital clinic, but certain things is for anytime you're a phlebotomist. Whatever job you're doing, wherever you're working, that's what it is when it comes to phlebotomy and stuff. But like I said, you may have individualized strict policies and protocols that you have to follow. Paying attention to detail, labeling your specimens, handling your specimens. All of this stuff definitely comes with phlebotomy. So you are going to be dealing with one little mistake, and it could be a big thing for your company, just depending on where you work. Obviously, you always want to have a paper trail. Like I said, try to follow all of your protocols and everything like that. If you had a patient that fainted on you, you have to fill out the patient adverse form, send it to your supervisor, all of these things that you have to deal with. With any job, they all have their own policies, protocols, and procedures. And this is just something that you're going to be dealing with when you're working as a phlebotomist. Like I said, it's just one of those things. You can't just be like, all I'm going to do is just draw blood for the rest of my life as a phlebotomist. No, there are other things that you're going to be doing. Data entry, computer entering, insurance information, all of this stuff you're going to be doing. And with that comes policies, protocols, and procedures. And the last thing I want to discuss about what is the hardest part about being a phlebotomist is working in the healthcare field. So working in the healthcare field can definitely take an emotional toll on anyone. Any job, any career. You are dealing with the public. You are dealing with patients. You are part of a patient's care. So this can take an emotional toll on anyone. So even as being a phlebotomist, the demand for patients and specimen collection and things like that, like I said, you may go from, I had 6-7 patients yesterday, and now today I have 50. So it just depends. It can take an emotional toll on you. You're going to be dealing with the medical field, which means you have patients standing near your door, or if you're going in a room and they're not sure, okay, what's the order? What am I drawing? Which one? Where's your requisition? What's this? It can take an emotional toll. We're all human. People make mistakes. You're here to draw a patient, but it's not clear on what to do. Oh, they didn't fast. I'm not sure why it's not on the order for them to fast. And, it can be literally, you can literally clock out, get in your car, and just be like, working in healthcare is not for the weak. It's not for the weak. I don't care what you're doing. It's not for the weak. And it's the same thing as being a phlebotomist. We deal with things, we deal with orders not being right, and we're in a room. Oh, I need you to draw this. Okay, well, you want me to draw this, but it's not on the patient's order to draw this and this and that. There's a back and forth. When you're working in the hospital, you're running to code blues, you're running to rapid responses, you're doing all kinds of things, and it can be a lot. It can be a lot. Working in healthcare can definitely take an emotional toll on anyone, and I'm just being honest. From working in a hospital, I've been there. Working in a diagnostic laboratory, I've been there. And working in a clinic, I've been there. And it has its moments, it does. It honestly has its moments. You're human. You deal with things. You have things going on in your own life, and sometimes it's so hard, trying to put your personal life and sadness or whatever like that aside, and then you're going to work, and then you're dealing with all the nonsense and this and that and la 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 la. Working in healthcare is and can be tough. So that is another reason. But these are just certain ones that I just wanted to kind of come and just kind of single out a little bit more, discuss more of it. I know, like I said, I explained these in many of my other videos, but I always think maybe somebody had missed the video, so it's good to kind of go over it again, kind of give you like a lesson, like a refresher course, things like that. But I really hope that this video was helpful. Honestly, I never like to make my videos to make it sound like, wow, why is she saying all of this hardcore stuff? Like, dang, I don't want to be no phlebotomist. That's too much. No, I don't want to ever scare anyone or anything like that. I am literally here just to be real, because all of this is all of my experience. Like I said, you guys know I am not a professional educator on phlebotomy. Like, I didn't get like an actual license to teach phlebotomy, like a venipuncture license. No, this is all from my personal experience, because I've been doing this for a while. So everything that I discuss is always from my personal experience. And like I said, I just want to get real and raw with all of my viewers on the real thing, because honestly, we learn through textbooks. We watch videos where it's always like, it's so much flowers and sparkles and everything's so beautiful about being a phlebotomist, all this. And then you got the real and raw stuff. Where's the people that put the videos out there about how hardcore it can be and what's the bad days like and things like that? So I just literally just want to be very real and raw about everything when it comes to this career field, because I just feel like you guys should know both sides, the good, the positive, and then also the bad and the negative. So everyone has their own persona on what is and what's not. So I just like to get on here and just literally come out with the truth about everything that goes on in this career field. And I really hope that I'm really, really helping you guys and giving you a taste of what it's like or what it's not. And then if you decide to be a phlebotomist and things, and that you can pay it forward and do the same. So like I said, I'm never here to discourage. I just want to let you guys know how it is and how it's not. So don't forget, guys, I have my playlist. You guys are more than welcome to check out my playlist, because they're all in categories about anything that you guys want to watch on my channel. I did make a personal Instagram, so definitely give that a follow, y'all, so y'all can stay in tune with me about what's going on in my life and things like that. Some things you just can't post on YouTube. That kind of shows like the subscriber's life in certain ways, because it's more so like making a lot of videos, and things like that. So if you guys want to definitely know what's going on with Flo in her life and things like that, follow my Instagram. I'm going to add it here. It is Flo's Corner. Add the extra R, okay? There's a lot going on right now, and I do apologize about not making so many videos like I was before, but I'm really working on that. I'm trying, y'all. I'm trying. But thank you all for being so patient with me. I really, truly am blessed for y'all and everything. Give this video a thumbs up. Please subscribe if you're not subscribed, and I hope to see you all in my next video. Bye. It's Kool-Aid, y'all.